Their latest chips or stock performance?
Yeah, AMD recent days rising a lot, right? So let's talk about it. Okay, so I'm giving you a question regarding the growth potential, right? Given AMD 94% of year-over-year data center revenue growth in Q1 2025 and expanding AI portfolio, how sustainable is this growth in the face of increasing competition from NVIDIA? That is my question.
AMD's growth looks promising, especially with that 94% year-over-year jump in data center revenue for Q1 2025, hitting $12.6 billion, largely driven by their AI-focused Instinct GPUs. Their expanding AI portfolio, with new GPUs like the MI325X and MI355X coming soon, positions them well to keep pushing. That said, NVIDIA's a beast, holding about 80 to 85% of the AI GPU market and projecting massive growth, like $200 billion in GPU revenue for 2025. AMD's got a shot at sustaining growth if they keep innovating and capturing more of the $500 billion data center AI market. But NVIDIA's dominance means AMD needs to execute flawlessly. Partnerships and acquisitions like ZT Systems help, but they're playing catch-up in a fierce race. It's sustainable if they keep delivering, but NVIDIA's shadow looms large. What's your take on their chances?
Okay. Give me a straight answer, yes or no, for sustainable future of AMD.
Yes, but it's conditional on staying ahead in innovation and market share against NVIDIA. Tough call. Want me to dive deeper into why?
Okay, of course, this industry full of competition, everyone understand. Okay, maybe I ask you another question, right? How significantly will the 700 million revenue hit from US export controls to China in Q2 2025 affect AMD overall financial performance and stock price in the short term?
The $700 million revenue hit from U.S. export controls to China in Q2 2025 is a chunk, about 9.5% of AMD's expected $7.4 billion quarterly revenue, and part of a $1.5 billion annual impact. This could dent short-term financials, with a projected non-GAAP gross margin of 43% already factoring in $800 million in related charges. The stock might take a hit too, as we saw shares drop over 5% when the curbs were announced in April. But AMD is still forecasting 27% year-over-year Q2 growth, so their broader AI and data center momentum could push in the
Since when the news appeared already priced in, then I'm saying the market already digests this so-called short news, right?
Yeah, markets usually price in news pretty fast, especially something big like export controls.
Okay. So then I'm giving you another question. Can AMD close the gap with NVIDIA in the AI GPU market, given its partnerships with hyperscalers like Meta and Microsoft? Or will it remain secondary player in the 500 billion AI accelerator market by 2028?
AMD's got a solid shot at closing the gap with NVIDIA, especially with partnerships like Meta and Microsoft, who are hungry for alternatives to diversify away from NVIDIA's 80 to 85% AI GPU market dominance. Their Instinct MI5050 series, like the MI355X, is boasting up to 4x performance over prior models and better cost efficiency than NVIDIA's B200, which could sway hyperscalers focused on scaling AI workloads. AMD's projected $500 billion AI accelerator market by 2028 gives them room to grow, especially with moves like renting GPUs back to clouds to boost adoption. But NVIDIA's Blackwell chips and CUDA software ecosystem are tough to crack, and AMD is still playing catch-up in software optimization. If they execute on their roadmap and keep hyperscaler momentum, they could grab a bigger slice, maybe 15 to 20%.
Okay. Give me a straight answer, yes or no.
Yes, AMD can close the gap with NVIDIA, but it'll be tough and depends on execution. Want me to break it down?
Of course. The managing, the strategy, of course, important, but nevertheless, people are confident in Lisa Su's managing style, right? Okay, so maybe I'm giving you another question. With analysis expecting AMD's EPS to rise to 3.22 in 2025 and $5.71 by 2026, how much confidence should investors place in these projections given macroeconomic risks and segment weakness in gaming and embedded industry? That is my question.
Investors should feel moderately confident in AMD's EPS projections of $3.22 for 2025 and $5.71 for 2026, as these numbers reflect strong analyst consensus. 17 analysts for 2025 with a range of $2.73 to $3.92, and similar for 2026, backed by AMD's 36% revenue growth and 476% net income jump in Q1 2025. Their AI and data center segments are booming, which supports these forecasts, but microeconomic risks, like weakness in gaming and embedded segments, could drag earnings, with embedded revenue down 20% year over year last quarter. Macroeconomic factors, rising interest rates, inflation concerns, and potential tech market volatility add uncertainty, especially with AMD's high forward PE of around 19, based on 2026 estimates. U.S.-China export curbs, costing $1.5 billion in revenue this year.
Okay. Can you give me a straight answer, yes or no?
Yes, investors can be moderately confident, but risks like macro conditions and export curb supply. Need specifics?
Okay, I am satisfied with your answer. So I'm giving you another question. How impactful are AMD's recent collaborations, for example, Microsoft, Xbox, HLC Tech, Humane, in driving long-term revenue growth and market share in AI and data center segments? That is my question.
AMD's recent collaborations, like with Microsoft, Xbox, and HCL Tech, are pretty impactful, boosting their AI and gaming push. The multi-year Microsoft and Xbox partnership, announced earlier this month, has AMD co-engineering silicon for next-gen Xbox consoles and handhelds, promising better graphics, AI-enhanced gameplay, and full backward compatibility. This locks in AMD's role in a major gaming ecosystem, potentially driving steady revenue, especially as Xbox expands to cloud and PC platforms. The HCL Tech deal is more about AI infrastructure. HCL is using AMD's EPYC processors and Instinct GPUs for AI cloud solutions, tapping into the $500 billion AI market by 2028. These partnerships strengthen AMD's foothold in AI and gaming, diversifying revenue beyond PCs. But they're not game changers alone.
So understand, you're optimistic about those collaborations with other companies, right? Other giants. Okay, so I'm giving you another question. Are the optimistic long-term price targets for 2030 ranging from 124 to 356 realistic, considering AMD's reliance on TSMC and potential supply chain disruptions? That is my question.
The long-term price targets for 2030, ranging from $124 to $356, are ambitious, but face hurdles due to AMD's heavy reliance on TSMC and potential supply chain disruptions. AMD depends on TSMC for nearly all its chips, and with TSMC aiming for 60% local procurement in Japan by 2030 to reduce risks, any hiccups, like geopolitical tensions or delays in TSMC's 2-nanometer node rollout, could squeeze AMD's production. Supply chain issues have hit hard before, and with demand for AI chips soaring, any bottleneck could cap AMD's growth. On the flip side, forecasts like CoinCodex's see AMD's stock climbing on AI demand and partnerships, with analysts expecting earnings per share to hit $13 by 2030. If AMD diversifies its supply chain or TSMC scales smoothly,
maybe you just give me some straight answer, yes or no.
Yes, the targets could be realistic, but supply chain risks make it iffy. Want details?
Okay, I think regarding geopolitical risk, I'm optimistic about the future. Don't worry about the tension between China and Taiwan. Okay, then my next question. How much weight should investors give to the bullish sentiment on X, for example, 95 plus options activity score versus analyst caution regarding valuation and competition? And what does this mean for near-term price movements? That's my question.
Investors should take the bullish sentiment on X with a 95 plus options activity score as a signal of strong market enthusiasm, but balance it with analyst caution on valuation and competition. High options activity suggests traders are betting big on AMD's upside, likely driven by AI hype and partnerships, but analysts warn of a high forward PE ratio, around 19 for 2026, and NVIDIA's dominance. This split points to volatile near-term price movements. Bullish sentiment could push AMD's stock up short-term, but any negative news, like supply chain hiccups or weaker than expected earnings, might trigger a pullback.
Wait, just now you mentioned so-called high forward PE ratio around 19 to 26 or 23. I don't think that is a high value, right? So please give me a strict answer, yes or no.
No, a forward PE of around 19 isn't high compared to tech peers like NVIDIA, but competition risks still matter. Want me to clarify more?
Okay, of course. Competition always be there, right? So the long term, the sentiment around platform of X or even sentiment statistics from the news all been positive. Am I correct?
Yeah, sentiment on X and in news about AMD has been pretty positive lately, with lots of buzz around their AI push and partnerships, like Microsoft and Xbox fueling optimism.
Okay. So you agree with my opinion? Maybe with this conversation, with a few questions, give me a final summarization, please.
Sure, here's a quick recap. We talked about AMD's growth potential, and I said it's sustainable if they keep innovating, despite NVIDIA's dominance. The $700 million revenue hit from U.S. export controls in Q2 2025 could dent short-term financials, but the market's likely priced it in already. AMD can narrow the gap with NVIDIA in the AI GPU market, leaning on hyperscaler partnerships like Meta and Microsoft. Though staying a secondary player is still possible. EPS projections of $3.22 in 2025 and $5.71 in 2026 are solid, but gaming and embedded segment weakness, plus macro risks, warrant caution. Collaborations with Microsoft, Xbox, and HCL Tech boost AMD's AI and gaming prospects, and long-term stock targets of $124 to $356 by 2030 are plausible if TSMC supply chains hold up. Finally, the bullish X sentiment with a 95 plus option score is a good sign for near-term momentum, but the forward PE of 19 is reasonable, not sky high, though competition remains a factor. You sound pretty optimistic, and I'd say AMD's got a bright path if they execute well. Anything else you want to dig into?
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.